What's up everyone, my name's Markhawk and today we are reviewing the Yi2 home camera. Now you might be wondering why we're reviewing a home security camera instead of an action camera. Funny story, when I initially agreed to review the Yi2 and have it sent over as a review unit, I thought I was going to be reviewing the sequel to the Yi1 action camera. Instead, we have the Yi2 home security camera and we've been messing around with it and it's actually been quite useful during a lot of the events of this summer. So as sort of a thank you for sending me this device, it actually ended up being super useful. We've decided to give it a full-on review. Or you can use any of these links to jump to the section you're most interested in. Otherwise, sit back and we'll start playing them all in just a second. And don't worry, we're going to get back to more action camera coverage in just a few days here. So, let's get to it. So we're going to start where we always start off by taking a look at what's in the box. Now inside here we're going to find the Yi Home Camera 2, and inside that is going to be a 32 gig micro SD card included in the camera. We're also going to have a USB wall outlet, that way we can plug in the USB into the camera to keep it charging, and for that we're going to need a USB cable that's included, as well as a manual and warranty card in English. Now the Yi Home Camera 2 has a good all-in-one design with a plastic that doesn't feel too cheap or too expensive. Its shape and design provides a lot of flexibility in how it can be positioned. The base is mounted firmly to the camera with the power being provided through the lower back USB port. Now with the base locked into this camera, it's actually going to limit this camera's mounting ability in a few specific ways since we can't mount it up flat against a wall. The camera also has a tricolor LED on the front that can be used to provide feedback or acts as a deterrent when people see it. Under the hood you're going to find a rough metallic surface with several spotty fingerprints, which seems to be a standard for multiple users here. This is also where you'll find the local storage for the micro SD card slot provided in the box. It's not the easiest to get in and out, but you're probably only going to have to do this once. Now this particular metal area is also really hot to the touch once the camera's been used for quite a bit of time. It might act as the central cooling system though, to transfer heat away from the processor, which would explain why it's such a good conductor of heat. Now speaking of heat, the camera is rated to work in operating temperatures of 113 degrees. However, if you stick it near a window and temperatures are around 100 to 108, our test had the camera overheat after a day or so, and it will shut down to protect the internal hardware, but as soon as it cools down enough, it will automatically turn back on and resume normal function without you needing to touch it. The camera itself is not weatherproof, and there is no sort of outdoor case that's currently available for this camera. Now there's also a loudspeaker in the camera that can be heard from several rooms away. Now the speaker is used to give audible alerts for certain modes. For example, if someone wants to send a remote message or take pictures, the loudspeaker will basically allow you to talk to someone and get messages back on the other end. And the chime is basically there to catch certain users not off guard. So if you wanted to send a message to your wife or your husband, or if you just wanted to talk to your dog, they'll get a nice sort of audio chime before you start talking.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Now it's worth noting that these alerts are only meant for these specific modes. Straight out of the box you won't have to worry about alerting to watching somebody through the camera. It's specifically meant for these modes, and you can also actually disable the LED light if you really want to hide the camera. Now the lens, processor, and image sensor specs are all on your screen. What this translates into is the Yi2 has a sharper image than last year's 720p model. Now shooting at 120 degree field of view at 1080p 60 frames a second, the image is fairly clear, though it won't beat out some of the higher end action cameras you might be used to using or a digital SLR. The improved image sensor though provides a better handling in low to zero light scenarios, and the provided higher dynamic range and heavily contrasted scenarios is much improved. This is referred to as the Smart HDR system. Basically, areas that used to be crunched all the way to black and have no detail will definitely be lifted now and not be lost. That added detail could be really important in a security camera. The added processing power provides for not only a better bitrate on your local video, but also allows the camera to transcode streamable versions at a higher quality faster. There's still a several second delay though between what's on the camera being captured by the time it gets sent to the app and onto your live stream. Now the Yi2 is also equipped with an 11-piece set of invisible infrared LED beads to generate visibility in zero light. Now your frame rate's going to take a hit in these zero light conditions. That's because the camera's keeping the shutter open longer to gather more light, but this will allow you to have a much clearer and brighter picture of what's lurking in the darkness. However, we found that this didn't really work super well when it was pointed at an angle at glass, or if you were filming through a spotty window, as the IR beams will reflect off of the glass and back into the camera, blowing out a lot of the image. Now the Yi2 is directly tied to the Yi Home app in order to operate, and setting up the camera to the app is very manageable. It takes about a minute and a half. Now once you plug the camera in for the first time, after a few seconds you'll be prompted with this message.
Waiting to connect.
Now if you don't hear that message, you'll need to open up the back and hold down the reset button for a few seconds and then start over. Now using your phone, tablet, or whatever smart device you're using to connect to the Yi Home app, you're going to want to log into the Wi-Fi network that you want the Yi2 camera to connect to. Once you've done that, load up the app, and if it's the first time loading it up, you'll be directed on how to set up a new camera. However, if you've opened up the app before, you can press the little plus symbol in the top right. Once you do this, you'll be presented with a QR code that the Yi Home 2 camera will scan and pretty much automate the rest of the process once you press next.
Please face the QR code towards the camera lens and wait for it to scan. QR code scan is successful. Please click Next. Connecting. Please wait. Wi-Fi is connected. Pairing is successful. Pairing is successful. You can start using your camera now. You can start using your camera now.
Now we did at several points encounter a Wi-Fi login issue where it fails to connect,
Wi-Fi password error.
even though we put in the right password. This is a common error with the Yi2. It has not yet been resolved. However, there is an easy workaround with the camera to just simply unplug it and replug it back in. It has to do with an IP address sort of issue, and I think it's also safe to assume you might want to close out the app too before you start the whole process. The app is well laid out, though it does prompt you with a 5-second ad upon loading up. Now this could be a good way to utilize launch load times, but often it feels like an obstacle as you rush to log into your camera. It's pretty standard on most Yi apps though, and it's not terribly offensive. The firmware process is done exactly how you'd hoped. When an update is available, you're presented with an alert which takes you to a screen listing all of the firmware notes and a start button. Once you've started the process, it pretty much is automated and only requires you to acknowledge that the process was either successful or encountered an error and asks you if you want to retry. You can also grant access to other users on your contact list to see your network of cameras, and you'll even get notification alert messages sent to their phones. They won't be able to get full administrator access, but you can simply share your login info if you trust that person enough to get the same functionality that you have. Now, a big downside to this device is you do need a smart device in order to load the Yi app on. There's no desktop software, and without access to this app, there's no way you can even set up the camera, let alone manage it. Now at launch, some of the major features were missing, but most have found their way to the camera via firmware updates. The big one that's still missing though is the optional cloud storage. There will be some form of free online storage once the service is launched, and that's probably going to be limited to the first 24 hours. And there will be higher tier options with different prices on different amounts of days you can store. However, none of that exists as of September 2016. Now the Yi2 can be set to save only activity that's detected, or can save everything. Just saving activity or motion detections is really good if you have a camera that you don't check daily. Maybe it's at a remote location that you only check maybe weekly, so you can only see just the updates. Otherwise, you're going to have several days of 24-hour videos. It will delete the oldest file when it starts to record the newest file, and this is all limited basically on the micro SD card in the device. Now, some other neat features include the ability to keep track of how many patrons are coming through a specific area on the camera with its person counter, so you can basically see how much foot traffic moves through a certain area or how many people came into your store in one day. You can also have multiple cameras tied to the same account, and these cameras don't have to be the same model. I think right now Yi offers up to 3 different types of different home security cameras that you can all tie to the same network, share with other users, and again get multiple alerts. Now with multiple cameras in multiple regions, you don't want your phone constantly spamming you with notifications. Now with these cameras, you can actually set up a region of the screen to only send you alerts. And the best way to describe this is, let's say you have a camera facing outside of your house. Every time a car goes by or a dog walks by, you don't want your camera to send you a notification because you'll be getting notifications all day. But if somebody comes onto your property, you can actually highlight that area and say, hey, send me an alert immediately when this happens. You can even set up different regions within the same thing to send you different types of alerts, like somebody's on my lawn, somebody's on my patio, somebody's in my backyard, and these will all be sent to alerts on your phone and people in your network. Now, along with motion, audio can be used to trigger recording and send alert notifications. If you're using this camera as a baby monitor, it can actually detect a baby crying and send an alert to your phone. However, it can determine some things as crying that aren't necessarily that. Sometimes a talking guest or a TV can send an alert that a baby is crying nearby. Other noises it'll include sometimes is a dog. Now, this might not be an intended function of the device, but while I was at work, I got an alert that a baby was crying at my house. I don't have a baby, but I do have a big golden retriever, and I was notified and I logged in to my camera to find my dog acting really weird and whimpering. She was in some form of distress, but I couldn't really tell why. Now, luckily, the camera alerted to me. I rushed home to see what was going on hours before I would have otherwise. Turns out fire alarm was going off in my house. It had been sort of broken and was just letting out this really annoying beep, and I was able to fix it out and calm her down way before I would have normally gotten home. Again, that might not have been the intended purpose, but this camera can detect audio that is abnormal and send you a notification, so you could at least check in and see what's going on. Now, the camera can recognize hand gestures that allows you to interact with specific features on the device. At this time, though, there's only one real use for it, and it's very limited. If you move your hand in a certain way, you can trigger the recording of a video message to be sent to the phone app. However, the camera would often detect this gesture even when it wasn't intended at all, and we ended up having to disable it from the app to stop weirding out our guests to let them know they're being recorded for a video message when no one was asking it to. Now, the better option would be to use the two-way talk function. Again, since we have that region, we can set up a region to let us know that somebody is standing in front of the camera, and since I see that alert, I can initiate a two-way talk function, and then you can have a two-way conversation, which is a much better way than the person trying to do hand gestures in order to get my signal, which would take much longer as well. Now, this camera also offers human detection. Now, this isn't going to recognize people. It's not going to tell you the FedEx guy between the mailman. But what it is going to say is that there's a human being that's been detected and not another foreign object. It's going to be very specific. So if you're monitoring an area that doesn't have a ton of foot traffic, this is a good way to get alerted that, hey, someone's on the side of your house, or if you're using this for a store, it's a really good way to say, hey, somebody's coming up near the register if you're in the back trying to get another order ready. And along with all that other fancy stuff, you can also take clips and photos live at any point while you're watching it. And if you missed an event while it was happening live, you can actually scrub back into your local storage and download clips from previously at a better bit rate than what was shown during the stream version. So as someone that doesn't normally review security cameras, I don't want to definitively say this is a great camera or a bad camera, but I did find it to be a very useful camera. If I had to label it, I'd say it's a great early notification system compared to anything else. I wouldn't really label it as a security system just because it doesn't really offer the cloud storage just yet. In the off event that I do have a burglary and the camera is stolen, all of the local storage on the camera is gone. I have nothing to give to police. I only have an early notification system so I can call the police earlier. Once the cloud system's up, I'll be able to take that footage and use it for that type of event. Now, in a summer where we had a ton of disasters and a ton of crappy stuff happen around the house, it was really good to have a network of these cameras around to maintain and just see what was going on. We had forest fires happening, and while there was live coverage on our house for the first hour, after that we basically relied on the Yi camera to basically tell us where the fire was and when it was time to drop everything, go home, get our dog, get our stuff before we were evacuated. And once we were evacuated, it was a really good way to monitor what was going on in the neighborhood and just see how bad things were. But during that fire, during that event, and when our AC died and we had to monitor the dog inside the house to make sure the temperatures weren't getting too high, things like that, having these early notification systems for like when our dog was upset was incredibly invaluable. And it's a few bucks. Like, it's an early notification system. It's not going to replace a full-on security system, but it did add a little bit of security, and the fact that all of these can be networked and I can share it with my significant other and we can both get alerts. That way, if I miss one alert, she gets it. Worth checking out. Again, will it replace a whole security system? I'm probably not the right guy to ask, but when it comes to video quality, quality was good enough for where I needed it. The only thing that really worried me was not having the ability to put the camera outside because it wasn't weatherproof. So if somebody came onto my porch and snapped a package and then got in their car, I wouldn't be able to get a license plate. And the image isn't super sharp to the point that even if they pull into my driveway, I'd see it. And then not being able to film outside through a window because of the IR beams basically reflecting into the glass was pretty limiting, and since I can't mount the camera again outside, kind of sucks. Heat issues worked out fine for the most part. I feel like most of the country isn't going to have plus 104 heat. That's about the best I could say for it. The notification function, the region stuff was really cool, and yeah. We don't normally do security camera reviews, so let me know what you thought in the comments section below. If you found this review useful, or if there's anything you have questions on, check out the more information section below this video. It also contains affiliate links that really help out supporting this channel, and if you're here for action camera coverage, we're going to have a ton of that soon. So, with that out of the way, I'm Mark Hawk. Check out the more information section below if you have questions, and yeah, I'll see you all out there. Have a good one, everyone.